and representing workers in this area for decades. Steve, Luigi. We also have Steve and Luigi hosted us here. I really appreciate them. I also want to acknowledge Barbara Ball. She's our common sense conservative candidate in Nepean. Nepean, a great place to be in. And we have the best candidate. She started off in the artillery. In what year? 1992. And then she went on to the police force. So I'm saying boots, not suits. It's not just the trades, but it's also the police and the troops that wear the boots. And she knows how to pick up 100-pound artillery shells. So she's strong enough to be a representative, probably stronger than anyone else in the House of Commons. And we can't wait till she gets elected to fight for the people in this community. And I'm also really excited to be here I want to say hello to Rochelle's grandmother. Rochelle, your grandmother is watching on Facebook, you told me. So Rochelle's grandmother is out there, and I know she's very proud of you. So, and with good reason. So we're here at 527. This is a very special local. I learned about LiUNA. I used to go to my buddy's parents' place for Sunday dinner, and they have a grotto, an Italian family. They have their beautiful vegetables they grow in their backyard. And on Sunday, the grandkids, the cousins, the uncles, the aunts, they all come over. And the parents, they came here in '73, never actually learned how to speak English. But Albino was the father, and he would sit at the head of the table, obviously, and he would talk to me through his son in Italian. And I saw this plaque on the wall. It said LiUNA. I said, "What's that?" And the one English word he knew, pension. He pointed up, he said, "That's my pension." And it was a great story. It's the story of Canada, really. He came here in 1973. And him and his wife, obviously they scrimped and saved. They grew their food in the backyard. They never went out. They have a little cellar in the basement where all their pickled vegetables were kept. They managed to pay off their entire mortgage in 7 years. And it's right by the Civic Hospital, 10 minutes from Parliament Hill, the downtown of a G7 capital. And an Italian family that comes here with a suitcase and a dream has the husband works paving roads, the wife makes sandwiches at a senior's home. They pay off the mortgage in 7 years. It's really incredible. And then, years later, their son Tony was able to buy his house when he was about 29 years old in a nice Ottawa suburb. But now the grandkids, who are now third generation, obviously speak perfect English. They'll soon have a university education. The younger daughter actually works 3 jobs, and she doesn't see any path to owning a home, which just shows how the Canadian promise has been broken after 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals. We need to bring back that promise for these great workers who are behind me, and for all the workers across the country. The steel worker who transformed raw ore into rebar, the electrician who wires up our cities, the sawmill worker who turns towering lumber into 2x4s, everyday workers that carry their families, their communities, and their country on their backs. After 10 years of Trudeau-Carney Liberals, these trades workers who build our homes cannot afford to buy them. Liberal taxes and inflationary deficits have driven up the cost of everything, shrinking the purchasing power of the workers who build our country. This is the lost Liberal decade. It has resulted in the worst decline in our country's economy in 40 years. It has made us helplessly dependent on the Americans by blocking resource projects and sending billions of dollars of discounted resources for the Americans to profit off our backs. Now, the Liberals claim that if you elect them for a 4th term, that they will be different than the first 3 terms. Well, we know that that's not true. The only way to get a change is by putting Canada first, by electing a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash resources, and bring home our jobs and economic sovereignty from the Americans. That's why I'm announcing today part of my Bring It Home economic plan. It's called Boots, Not Suits. This plan will bring home a country that works for the people who do the work. And here's the plan. First, we will reinstate the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to help our young apprentices with the cost of training up. This is a grant the previous Conservative government brought in, and the current Liberal government had planned to phase out at the end of this month. Well, I'm here to announce that my government will reinstate it to give direct financial support to young apprentices.
Yes.
I'm going to be bringing it back and putting the money in their pockets. Second, Conservatives will provide funds to union training halls like this one for machines, bricks, mortar, walls, floors, all of the above, with the goal of training 350,000 apprentices and other trades workers over the next 5 years. We'll make sure that actual buildings and centers are eligible, that they get this UTIP funding. The smaller unions and locals will also be eligible, and they will be eligible for up to 75% of the cost of building and running these programs. Third, we'll create a special rapid class of EI that makes it easier for tradespeople to get the money that they are owed from EI while they do their training. Right now, they have to wait weeks on end without any money coming in as they're training up, and that puts them in a tough spot paying the rent. My government will ensure tradespeople are not punished for training, and we'll do this by allowing the union training halls to register the apprentices for EI. So it will allow you guys to register them, get them started, and that way when they join the program, their EI is ready to go. They got money in their pocket and food in their fridge. Fourth, we'll work with the provinces to harmonize the health and safety regulations so our trade workers can go anywhere. Right now, believe it or not, a trades worker who goes across the country has to redo the 4-day health and safety program. So they might have done the entire program already in another province, but say they're going from Timmins to Fort Mac. They arrive, their first 4 days is without pay because they're not allowed to work, and they do a course that they've already taken in another province. I'm going to bring the provinces and their labor ministers together to harmonize and get mutual recognition. So if you've got the health and safety ticket in one province, you're recognized to work in all the provinces. This is common sense, and we're going to pay for all this by cutting bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and waste. Like I said, more boots, less suits. After 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, Canada's economy is weaker and more reliant than ever. Especially, and we've lost $500 billion because of the high taxes here. Mr. Carney supported carbon taxes on Canada while he invested in American coal. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline in Canada while he bought pipelines abroad. Yesterday, his newly appointed environment minister reaffirmed that the Carney Liberal government will impose an energy production cap, which the parliamentary budget officer just confirmed will cost 50,000 jobs. This proves that Carney is still faithful to his radical, keep it in the ground, net zero insanity. Nothing will change. In fact, it will get worse. And that will be good for rich global elites like him and the multinational corporations that profit off of Canada's weakness. We know that Mr. Carney's company abuses workers. They bust unions. They invested in companies that busted unions. He also, in a very tragic case, one of the insurance arm of Carney's company, Brookfield, profited by denying the insurance claims of coal miners dying from black lung. There are workers who, by breathing in dust in the ground, became extremely sick. And when they went to get the insurance that they had paid for, they were denied by Carney's, the company that does the insurance for Brookfield. They profited off that. In fact, this company lost in court. The court found that the company was wrong. Now, Mr. Carney needs to tell us, is he still invested in a company that abuses workers' rights and denies coal miners and their widows the benefits that they deserve? Mark Carney will never stand up for the working people. He will only stand up for the millionaire and billionaire global elites. That is all that he has ever done. He's only done 2 things in Canada since he came back from Europe. One, move his headquarters out of Canada to New York, taking jobs from our country to the United States, just like Trump wanted. And 2, acting as Trudeau's economic advisor, supporting all of his policies, no matter what he tries to tell you now. But just wait, you'll see, he'll be copying my next announcement. It will be, about 3 or 4 days, he'll be ripping off the announcement that I made today as he pretends to support the things that I stand for 30 days before an election. The choice in the next election is very clear. One is to bring jobs home, the other is to ship jobs abroad. One is to bring real change, the other is to cling on to power for a fourth consecutive term. One is to cut taxes, and the other is to raise them. One puts Canada first, the other puts Carney first. And the question in the next election will be further, can Canada afford a fourth term of the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, who, working with Trudeau, made Canada weaker and poorer, and is too weak and conflicted to stand up to Donald Trump? Or do we think it's time for a real change with a conservative government that will stand up to Trump from a position of strength, unleash growth, bring home jobs, axe taxes, build homes, secure our border, rebuild our military, and put Canada first? We need a change.
A change.
We need to take back control of our economy.
Put Canada
we need to
first.
stand by the people who build stuff, dig stuff, move stuff, make stuff. That's why common sense conservatives will always stand with our employers and our unions right across this country to unleash the great Canadian promise that Albino Greco experienced when he arrived here back in 1973. The promise that was made and kept to my wife Anna and I, and the promise that we will restore for all Canadians. In a country where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work
Damn right.
gets you a great life,
Even that guy knows
a
behind
beautiful
it,
home,
too.
on a safe street,
Hell yeah.
protected by brave
yeah,
troops under a proud flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home.
Oh, yeah, the guy behind him, Mr. Fish.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll now take questions from the floor. If you can identify your name and outlet.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Bill Perry from the Globe and Mail.
Prime Minister.
Yesterday there was a report saying that you'd had a conversation with the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, to congratulate him on his win, and that you reportedly asked him for his support during the campaign, which he supposedly did not accept or was not willing to do that. So what is your version of that conversation? Why did it take nearly 3 weeks to congratulate him on his win? And why is it that we so rarely hear either of you say very nice things about each other?
Well, the report is not accurate.
Mark
I did speak to the Premier, as I
Doug
do with
Ford
all
is a freaking
premiers
idiot.
whenever they want to talk. And we talk about bringing home jobs to Canada, supporting the Ring of Fire, cutting taxes, unleashing our production, and reversing the lost Liberal decade of the last 9 years. And I'll be working with Premier Ford and all premiers across this country to bring home the country that we knew and still love, a country where hard work will get people a great life in a safe community, living in a beautiful home under our beautiful flag. Thank you.
Yes.
Le reportage n'était pas vrai. On en parlait, on a eu une excellente conversation par rapport au cirque de feu, à la nécessité de couper les taxes et les impôts, de libérer la potentiel de notre économie et de confronter l'agression économique des Américains en ramenant la souveraineté économique ici au Canada.
Thank you. Next question.
Bonjour, Boris Proulx du Devoir. Monsieur Poilievre, vous n'avez jamais vraiment répondu à la question sur les cibles d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre sous un gouvernement conservateur. Vous avez dit l'autre jour les émissions globales versus les émissions du Canada. Ceci étant dit, c'est votre occasion d'être très clair. Est-ce que oui ou non, un gouvernement conservateur garderait les cibles du Canada en matière de réduction des GES?
On doit regarder où on est. Dans le processus. C'est clair que les libéraux ne vont pas atteindre les cibles qu'ils ont promis. Évidemment, M. Carney veut imposer une taxe carbone sur les industries canadiennes. Ça va tuer des emplois et ramener et expulser l'activité économique aux États-Unis, en Chine et ailleurs où il y a beaucoup plus de pollution. Donc, si on ferme une usine ici au Canada pour en ouvrir une autre en Asie, qui crée plus de gaz à effet de serre, on n'a fait que tuer des emplois et élargir les émissions globalement. L'atmosphère s'en fout si c'est une tonne de carbone du Canada ou de la Chine. Donc, c'est un processus global. Il faut ramener la production ici parce que nous pouvons le faire de la façon la plus propre au monde. Mon annonce de l'autre jour, c'était qu'en éliminant la taxe carbone sur nos industries, On va élargir le crédit d'impôt pour la production propre, pour favoriser la production ici au Canada. Ça va réduire les émissions à l'échelle mondiale, tout en ramenant notre souveraineté économique. Je vous donne l'exemple. L'aluminium au Saguenay. Pour chaque tonne produit de l'aluminium, c'est 2 tonnes d'émissions. En Chine, c'est 12 tonnes d'émissions pour chaque tonne d'aluminium. Donc, si on expulse la production vers la Chine, ça tue nos emplois ici, mais en plus, ça élargit la production d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre. La solution, M. Carney veut expulser la production aux pays plus polluants où lui, il a investi, ou là où il a des conflits d'intérêts. Moi, je veux le contraire. Je vais ramener la production ici au Canada en éliminant les lois anti-ressources et les taxes sur nos industries qu'ont imposé les libérales. C'est ce que je veux dire quand je dis les mots « ramenant les emplois chez nous ». In English, thank you very much. On the issue of the environment and climate change, there's a big difference between the Carney-Trudeau Liberals and I. They have driven $500 billion of investment out of our country with heavy taxes and by blocking resource projects in this country. That drives up pollution in other countries because other industries abroad are more polluting. I'll give you the example of aluminum. In Canada, to make 1 ton of aluminum, you have 2 tons of greenhouse gases emitted. In China, 1 ton of aluminum means emitting 12 tons of greenhouse gases. By taxing our energy, our aluminum makers, we drive the production to China, where the emissions will be much higher. The atmosphere doesn't care where the emissions happen. It's the same from a chemical point of view. And so what I'm saying is let's bring down global emissions by bringing production back. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax and bring in a tax reward for businesses that produce steel, aluminum, cement, fertilizer, and other commodities below the global emissions average. So it's a global problem with a local solution. And that solution is to bring home our production and paychecks by repealing liberal taxes, liberal anti-development laws, and opening up our economy to the world so that we can bring down pollution. That's how you put Canada first.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, Davis Legree from iPolitics. Earlier this week, Mark Carney added Mark Wiseman to his list of advisors on Canada-U.S. relations. Mark Wiseman was the co-founder of the Century Initiative, a lobby group that wants to bring Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. Can I get your reaction to that, and what do you think, how do you feel about the idea of rapidly expanding Canada's population to reach 100 million by the end of the century?
Well, it shows that the Liberals would be no different in a 4th term than they were in the first 3. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system in their first 3 terms in power. They followed a radical globalist ideology of massive, uncontrolled population growth that put strain on our housing market, our health care, and our job market. Now, corporate elites like Mr. Wiseman and Mr. Carney loved it because it drives wages down. It takes jobs away from our workers in numbers that we can't replace by growth in the job market. But it's terrible for our working class. And by bringing on Mr. Wiseman, it shows that Mark Carney supports the Liberal Century Initiative to nearly triple our population to 100 million people. We voted against the Century Initiative in the House of Commons, and the Liberals voted for the Century Initiative unanimously. That is the radical Liberal agenda on immigration. We will get back to moderate, reasonable levels of immigration. Our country was built by common sense immigration, but we need to ensure we grow the housing supply, our health care, and our jobs faster than we grow our population. And so I will reject the Century Initiative and get back to common sense immigration that brings people to Canada in numbers that we can hire, that we can house, and that we can care for. That was the best immigration system in the world, and we're going to bring it home again.
In French.
Merci beaucoup
Damn
de la
right.
question. Engager M. Wiseman montre que M. Carney supporte les mêmes politiques radicales en matière d'immigration que Justin Trudeau et les libéraux. Pendant 3 mandats, les libéraux ont détruit notre système d'immigration. Et maintenant, ils en veulent un quatrième pour faire exactement la même chose. On sait que les globalistes et l'élite corporative aiment l'immigration hors de contrôle parce que ça leur permet de baisser les salaires et réduire les salaires pour nos travailleurs. Mais c'est pas bon pour les Canadiens. Mais évidemment, M. Carney va continuer avec cette politique radicale. Moi, je rejette clairement l'initiative du siècle. J'ai voté contre l'initiative du siècle à la Chambre des communes. Les libéraux ont unanimement voté pour l'initiative du siècle. Et maintenant, M. Carney va le mettre en place. Moi, je vais réinstaurer un système d'immigration basé sur le gros bon sens. On va inviter les gens ici dans les nombres qu'on peut absorber en gardant la croissance de la population plus bas que la croissance de l'offre de logement, de santé et des emplois. C'est comme ça qu'on va rétablir le meilleur système d'immigration au monde.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Thank you.
Raheem Ahmed, National Post. I guess welcome home to Nepean. I know your riding used to cut into the area before it was redistricted. So speaking of homecomings, Mark Carney was in Edmonton yesterday to meet with Danielle Smith. Shortly after the meeting, Smith put out a list of demands for the next Prime Minister, including, among other things, ending the prohibition on single-use plastics. She said if these demands were not met within 6 months of the new mandate, there would be a national unity crisis. Are you willing to commit right now to meeting the demands that Premier Smith has enumerated?
I think Premier Smith's demands are very reasonable. You'll have to see the rest of our platform roll out in due course, but she was making clear that Mark Carney's using weasel words. He's pretending that he suddenly, 30 days before an election, changed his entire radical net zero, keep it in the ground ideology. Mr. Carney, I can't even believe he would have the audacity to show up in Edmonton. He opposed the Northern Gateway Pipeline in a committee testimony. His company was buying pipelines in the Middle East. That pipeline would have created jobs for Edmontonians. It would have been a boom for Northern Alberta. And all the money that would have rushed into Edmonton would have created opportunities. And he opposed it. It's on the record. He supports carbon taxes in Canada while he invests in American coal. Yesterday, his environment minister confirmed that the energy cap will stay in place if the Liberals are in office. So, despite the fact that they're trying to put on this mask last minute before the election, make no mistake, a fourth Liberal term will be exactly like the previous 3. It's been the lost Liberal decade. And this is the question Canadians are going to have to answer, do we want a fourth term of Liberals who block resources, tax our people, drive up our costs, unleash crime in our community, and make us weak and defenseless facing the Americans? Or do we want to put Canada first for a change?
Yes.
By axing taxes, unleashing our resources, building homes, locking up criminals, rebuilding our military, standing up to the Americans, and putting Canada first.
Yes.
Thank you.
Boom.
That concludes today's press conference.
Like and subscribe, everybody. Pierre Poilievre is Canada's next Prime Minister, and I can't wait. God bless, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one, my friends.